this video lecture, and in this video lecture I'll be solving previous year's NEET questions and discussing the answers. And so as you can see on the screen, it is for the chapter digestion and absorption, and we are into part 1 of the series. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so before I begin, let me change the ink. Yeah. So question number 1. Identify the correct statement with reference to human digestive system. Okay, so we have to identify the correct statement. Please read the question carefully, okay? And this appeared in NEET 2020, which is quite recent. So let's go through our options. A. Ileum opens into small intestine. Okay. B. Serosa is the innermost layer of the alimentary canal. C. Ileum is a highly coiled part. D. Vermiform appendix arises from duodenum. Okay, so before I proceed with the answer, I would suggest you pause the video, think about the answer, and then come back. Okay. All right. So the answer will be C. Okay. Now I will not explain all of this now. Why the answer is C? We'll go on to the discussion. So ileum opens into the large intestine. Okay, so the first statement over here was ileum opens into small intestine, which is incorrect. It opens into the large intestine. Serosa is the outermost layer of the intestinal epithelium. It is not the innermost layer. The innermost layer is mucosa. Okay, so serosa is the outermost layer of the intestinal epithelium. It is important that you understand the order of the layers. Ileum is a highly coiled part. Ileum is a highly coiled part. It is structured in that way. So you have duodenum, you have jejunum, and when it goes to the ileum, it is a very highly coiled structure. So that is why C was the right answer. It was the correct statement. Vermiform appendix arises from the cecum. Okay, so if we go back to our question C, so vermiform appendix arises from the duodenum, which is again incorrect. It arises from the cecum. Cecum is the first part of the large intestine. Okay, so and serosa is the innermost layer of the alimentary canal. Nope, that is also incorrect. It is serosa is the outermost layer. The innermost layer is what? Mucosa. So therefore C is the right answer. I think I have put diagrams also for this. Let me see. Yep. Okay, so both diagrams are taken from NCERT. It is important that you study the diagrams in NCERT. Okay, it can come in the exam. And so, like I told you, it is important to remember the orders of the layer, okay, of the intestinal epithelium. So you can clearly see here serosa is the outermost layer and the innermost layer is the mucosa. Okay, and this is the lumen. Okay. So, and also over here, you can see where is ileum. Yep, ileum over here. It's a very highly coiled structure. Okay, and cecum, the vermiform appendix arises from the cecum. Okay, so clearly, if you are familiar with the diagrams and if you knew your theory properly in NCERT, you would be able to answer this question. It was quite simple. And please read the question carefully. It says correct statement. Okay, don't choose the incorrect statement and then you realize later you selected the wrong answer. All right, so clear? Let's move on to the next question. All right, so question number 2. Match the following structures with their respective location in organs. This appeared in NEET 2019. So we need to match. Let's match then. Crypts of Lieberkühn, they appear in the small intestine. Glisson's capsule, clearly in the liver. Islets of Langerhans, that's in the pancreas. Brunner's glands, duodenum. Okay, so you have A, B, C, D. You have Crypts of Lieberkühn, which is 3, Okay, B is liver, which is 4. Yeah, 4. Then C is a 1 and D is 2. So clearly D is the right answer. Okay, let's go on to the discussion. So crypts of Lieberkühn, okay, are present in the small intestine epithelium, okay, and they are small invaginations in the lamina propria, okay, that is in the mucosa. Okay, there's villi in the mucosa. There are crypts of Lieberkühn also in the small intestine. So these crypts of Lieberkühn have a lot of cells in it, okay, that secrete some chemicals. Okay, they secrete some chemicals. They have endocrine cells also which secrete hormones, okay, that help in the digestion of the food, the kind that has entered the small intestine. Okay, so here is a diagram. This is taken from Inderbir Singh, this diagram. Just for your information, this is not from NCERT because this is a standard histology textbook which you will study in MBBS. Okay, Inderbir Singh. He's the author of a histology textbook. So over here, you can see this invaginations, in the lamina propria. See, you have lamina propria over here. Okay, this whole region over here, and you have these openings of crypts. Okay, they're small invaginations. That means they make space inside the lamina propria. Okay, so these are crypts. This is what it looks like. Okay, this is a diagrammatical representation, and there are cells present inside this. Okay, you have the villi over here that you can see here. Okay, and like I already told you in the previous question, it is important that you remember the layers, okay, of the intestinal epithelium. That is very important because they can ask you a question related to that. It's possible. Okay, so please study the diagrams of NCERT. Please, that's very, very important. Okay, so this diagram I just put it over here to give you a representation of what a crypt looks like, okay, in the small intestine. Glissen's capsule is a connective tissue that covers the liver. Okay, it's a connective tissue that covers the liver. It's called Glissen's capsule. Islets of Langerhans, they comprise the endocrine part of the pancreas. Now, pancreas has an exocrine part and it has an endocrine part. So, islets of Langerhans, they are present in the endocrine part that secretes hormones. Okay, they are also called pancreatic islets. This is another name. So, if you see the word pancreatic islets, you know they are referring to islets of Langerhans. Now, the human pancreas has about 1 million islets, okay, which is mostly present in the tail of the pancreas. Okay, the tail of the pancreas has about most of it is present there, but a total of 1 million islets are present in the pancreas. Brunner's gland. Now, Brunner's gland are present in the submucosa layer of the duodenum. Okay, now Brunner's gland are very specific to duodenum. Okay, it is only seen over there in the duodenum. So, if you see Brunner's gland, you know they are talking about duodenum. Okay, and they secrete an alkaline fluid containing mucin. Okay, the function is that they secrete an alkaline fluid containing mucin. Okay, and this is done to protect the mucosa, okay, from the acidic stomach contents entering the duodenum. So now when chyme enters, now chyme is coming from the stomach. Now stomach has a lot of acid, concentrated acid. Okay, so now you don't want the acid to destroy the mucosa, the layer of the intestinal epithelium, right? So Brunner's gland, and that's coming immediately into duodenum. That's the first part. Okay, so when it enters the duodenum, this Brunner's gland secrete mucin that protects that, and it's alkaline in nature. So you notice that it's alkaline in nature. It protects the mucosa of the intestinal epithelium. So Brunner's gland, remember, is very specific to duodenum. All right, so clear? Let's move on to the next question. Question number 3. Which of the following terms describes human dentition? Okay, talking about human dentition, and which of the following terms describe that? It's appeared in NEET 2018. Again, I would suggest you pause the video, think about the answer and come back. All right, so which of them would be? See, we know human dentition is thecodont, right? So thecodont is present here. It's diphyodont and it is heterodont. Heterodont. Okay, there are many different types of teeth. It's not just one form of teeth, right? It's not the same form of teeth throughout your jaw, right? You have different types of teeth. Diphyodont, yeah, diphyodont is, they appear twice. Okay, the milk teeth fall off and the permanent teeth come, so there's twice. Thecodont, they are embedded in the jaw, the socket. There's a socket and they're embedded in that. Okay, so the correct answer should be B. Answer B. Let's look at the discussion. So each tooth is embedded in the socket of the jawbone. Okay, this is known as thecodont. So human beings develop two types of teeth. Initially it is milk teeth or deciduous teeth. Okay, so if you see milk teeth or deciduous teeth, they mean the same thing. Okay, and they're followed by permanent or adult teeth. And the dentition in humans is of 4 different types. Hence it is categorized as heterodont. Okay, there are 4 different types of teeth. Alright, so here this is again taken from NCERT. Like I said, please study the diagrams in NCERT very carefully. So you can see this socket of jaw. Here this is where the teeth are placed. Okay, so it's a thecodont type of dentition. So, and you have 4 different types. Okay, so an adult human has 4 different types: incisors, canines, premolars and molars. Okay, this is, they are showing only one part. Okay, only one part of the jaw. All right, clear? I guess yeah, let's go back to the question. I guess it was clear. Yeah, so answer is B, thecodont, diphyodont and heterodont. All right, so this was quite simple, right? So information then NCERT, please read that. All right, question number 4. A baby boy aged 2 years is admitted to play school and passes through a dental checkup. Okay, so the play school performs a dental checkup for a 2-year-old. The dentist observed that the boy had 20 teeth. Okay, which teeth was absent? This appeared in 2017. Okay, so which teeth would be absent? Clearly it would be premolars. Okay, so your answer, correct answer is B. Answer should have been B. Okay, let's look at the discussion. Okay, so deciduous teeth or the milk teeth, they erupt from 7th month to age 2. Okay, so the age 2 that the boy had undergone a checkup, he had deciduous teeth or milk teeth. Okay, and they last till age 6 to age 30. Now milk teeth have molars in the place of premolars. Okay, hence premolars are absent. Okay, they have molars in the place of premolars. So if you look at the dental formula of a child, it is 2 1. You don't have premolars, you have molars. 2 1 0 2. Okay, into 2. So this represents one part of the upper jaw, and this is the lower jaw, one part of the lower jaw. Okay, so hence it comes down to 20. Yeah, sorry about that. So the molars fall off and are replaced by premolars, right? All right, so this was clear about teeth. Yes, yeah. Sorry, let's go back to the question again. Yeah. So dental, the boy had 20 teeth. Which teeth were absent? Premolars. Clear? Which cells, okay, this is question number 5. Which cells of Krebs-Liebknecht secrete antibacterial lysozyme? Okay, and this appeared in NEET 2017. This is a clear answer. It is Paneth cells. Okay, this is a direct question. Direct question, you're supposed to know the cells that are present in crypts of Lieberkühn, okay? And so it is Paneth cell, okay? So they secrete an antibacterial lysozyme. Let's look at the discussion. Okay, so Paneth cells are found deep inside the crypts of Lieberkühn. Like I told you, you've seen the structure of the Lieberkühn, right? So there are lots of cells present inside. There are some cells that secrete hormone, there's some cells that secrete some enzymes, okay? And these Paneth cells, they contain eosinophilic secretory granules, okay? They have rough endoplasmic reticulum and some irregular microvilli along with other granules, okay? Now these cells are rich in zinc and they produce lysozyme, which destroys bacteria, okay? So they are rich in zinc and they produce lysozyme which destroys bacteria. Now zymogen, chief or peptic cells is a gastric gland, okay? You saw zymogen, so zymogen is also called as chief or peptic cells and it is a gastric gland, okay, and are present in the basal parts of the glands. They have secretory granules that contain pepsinogen, okay? They have secretory granules that contain pepsinogen. Kupffer cells are hepatic macrophages, okay? Kupffer cells are hepatic macrophages and are present amongst the endothelial cells of the sinusoids in the liver, okay? So the liver, they contain some sinusoids over here, okay? So these are the cells present inside the lobules. So the Kupffer cells are present along the endothelial cells of the sinusoids in the liver. And what? They behave like macrophages, okay? They're hepatic macrophages. Argentaphin cells are endocrine cells. They are also found in the crypts of Lieberkühn and they are known to secrete serotonin. Okay, the Argentaphin cells, they are also present. They are also another kind of cells that are present in the crypts of Lieberkühn and they are known to secrete serotonin. They enhance intestinal motility. Okay, so clearly, as per our question, Paneth cells was the right answer. Okay, so they secrete lysozyme. Okay, clear? Let's move on to the next question. Yeah, question number 6. Which hormones do stimulate the production of pancreatic juice and bicarbonate? Okay, this appeared in 2016. So we have A, angiotensin and epinephrine. No, they don't stimulate the production of pancreatic juice and bicarbonate. B, gastrin and insulin. No. C, cholecystokinin and secretin. Yes, if you've got that, C is the right answer. D, insulin and glucagon. Again, no, that's the incorrect answer. So your answer should be C. Okay, let's go on to the discussion. So cholecystokinin, it acts on the pancreas and gallbladder, okay, and secretes pancreatic juice and bile juice. Okay, so it has two functions, acts on the pancreas and it acts on the gallbladder. Okay, and it secretes the pancreatic juice from the pancreas, the bile juice from the gallbladder. Okay, now secretin acts on the exocrine pancreas. Okay, there's an endocrine, remember I discussed earlier, there's an endocrine, there's an exocrine. Okay, the endocrine has islets of Langerhans. So the exocrine pancreas, this secretes water and bicarbonate ions. Okay, it acts on the pancreas and secretes A, water, and B, bicarbonate ions. Okay, that's the job of secretin. Oops, sorry. Okay, let's go back to the question. Alright, so which hormones stimulate the production of pancreatic juice and bicarbonate? We've already answered, that's cholecystokinin and secretin. Alright, clear? So this was a direct question. Alright, question number 7. Which of the following guards the opening of hepatopancreatic duct into the duodenum? Okay, this appeared in NEET 2016. Again, this is direct. If you know the anatomy of the digestive system, you should have been able to answer this question very easily. You don't even need the options, you just know it. Okay, so it's A, pyloric sphincter, B, sphincter of Oddi, C, semilunar valve, D, ileocecal valve. It's clearly B. So sphincter of Oddi is present, which guards the opening of the hepatopancreatic duct into the duodenum. Your answer should have been B. Let's look at the discussion. Okay, so the bile duct and the pancreatic duct open into the duodenum, okay, as the common hepatopancreatic duct, which is guarded by the sphincter of Oddi. Now, the sphincter of Oddi is separated into three parts. Now, this is extra piece of information that I'm giving you. This is extra. Okay, so this is just for you to be able to understand how exactly this sphincter look like. Okay, so it's actually anatomically divided into three parts. Okay, so you have the sphincter choledocus. Okay, you have the sphincter pancreaticus, and you have the sphincter ampullae. Okay, so the choledocus, clearly from the name itself, you know it's opening from the hepatic region. Okay, pancreaticus, you already know it's coming from the pancreas. And sphincter ampullae, it covers both the sphincters. Okay, I have a diagram where you'll be able to see. So the outer part is called ampullae. Okay, let's look at the diagram. Yeah, so this is a very clear diagram. So what if you follow my pen here, you see this part coming from the liver and the gallbladder, so common bile duct. Okay, it is coming here and it is opening into the duodenum. Now this is the pancreas, it is opening into the duodenum again. So this region over here is called the sphincter of Oddi. This is what it looks like. Okay, now histologically this is what it looks like. This diagram over here that you see. Okay, you have the sphincter pancreaticus. Okay, this part. You have the sphincter choledocus. And you have the sphincter ampullae. This is just extra piece of information, just to be able for you to be able to understand. Just remember, I've taken this from Inderbir Singh. This is not in NCERT, and this is taken from Guyton. Guyton is the name of the author for medical physiology. He's written a book on textbook on medical physiology. So anyway, so this is what the sphincter actually looks like. Okay, but the question was pretty clear. Sphincter of Oddi. Just remember that much. Okay, it's there in NCERT. Remember that piece of information. It's a fact. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, so question number 8. The primary dentition in human differs from permanent dentition in not having one of the following type of teeth. We already discussed this, right? So this appeared in 2015. And so how does the primary dentition differ from permanent teeth, permanent dentition? It does not have premolars. Okay, so the answer is D. Let's go to the discussion. So primary dentition does not have premolars. Instead, molars are present in the place of premolars. Okay, so again, like I told you, in a permanent human adult teeth, the dental formula is 2123 2123 into 2. Okay, and for children it's 2102 2102 into 2. Okay, so this is incisors, this is canines, this is premolars, this is molars. All right, and similarly over here you can see it's the same order, but just see that we don't have premolars in children. Okay, they develop later after the molars have dropped. If they come off, then the premolars grow. Okay, simple, direct. Remember, this question has appeared over and over again. That means it's an important piece of information that you need to remember. Okay, It has appeared. We've already discussed this question before also, right? So it has appeared before. Yeah. So let's one second. Let's go back to the question again. Now to answer your question, which we are here for. So primary dentition differs from the permanent teeth dentition because it does not have premolars. Okay. Now let's move on to the next question. Yeah. Okay. So question number 9. Where do certain symbiotic microorganisms normally occur in human body? Okay, and this appeared in 2012. So you have A. cecum, B. oral lining and tongue surface, C. vermiform appendix and rectum, D. duodenum. So direct question. This appeared as in the symbiotic microorganisms are present in A. cecum. So its answer A. Let's go to the discussion. So cecum is a blind sac, okay, that hosts symbiotic microorganisms, okay. And in herbivores, now in herbivorous animals, it plays a very important role in storing food, and bacteria is able to break down cellulose, okay. So one part is it stores food, and second is the bacteria that is present there is able to break down cellulose. In humans, as far from it's not, there's no clear function of cecum that is available, but according to some researchers, it is said that they maintain the gut flora. Okay, so there is bacteria present inside our gut, right? So they tend to maintain that microorganism population in the gut. Okay, that's really the job of cecum. Sorry. So to answer your question, yes, cecum is the place where symbiotic microorganisms normally occur in human body, but most of the job, as in it plays a major role in herbivorous animals, ruminants animals like cows, horses, Right. Okay, so question number 10. For its activity, carboxypeptidase requires, this appeared in 2012, carboxypeptidase requires zinc. Okay, it requires zinc. It does not require iron, niacin, copper, no. So your answer should be A. It's a clear fact, okay? I mean, there's nothing really that I can explain. Zinc is required for the functioning of carboxypeptidase. I would suggest you remember it as a fact, okay? So if a question like that appears, you know the answer, okay? Next question. Okay, question number 11. One of the constituents of the pancreatic juice which is poured into the duodenum in humans is, okay, so we are looking at the constituents of the pancreatic juice, and this appeared in 2011. So you have A. trypsinogen, B. chymotrypsin, C. trypsin, D. enterokinase. So one of the constituents of pancreatic juice has to be trypsinogen. Can't be chymotrypsin, it can't be trypsin, it can't be enterokinase. Okay, so your answer should be A. Let's go to the discussion. So pancreatic juice contains trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidases, amylases, lipases, and nucleases. Okay, you need to remember this. Okay, this is there in NCERT also. So please make a list of the constituents of pancreatic juice. Okay. Now trypsinogen is poured into the duodenum, which is activated by trypsin. Actually, it is activated by enterokinase. Okay, so what happens is trypsinogen is converted to trypsin in the duodenum. Okay, now trypsinogen is secreted by pancreas. It enters into the duodenum. Now there is enterokinase present in the duodenum. Enterokinase, it's easy to understand. Enterokinase means part of the enteric gut, the intestine. Okay, so it is secreted in the gut, in the duodenum. Okay, so enterokinase is secreted from the duodenum, the intestinal mucosa. Okay, that is there. And this converts trypsinogen to trypsin. So trypsinogen is an inactive part, inactive chemical. Okay, it's an inactive enzyme. Okay, and it gets converted to an active form. That's trypsin. So trypsin is not actually a part of the pancreatic juice. Trypsinogen is part of an pancreatic juice, and then it gets converted to an activated form in the duodenum. Okay, with the help of enterokinase. Okay, it's not activated by trypsin in the presence of actually it should be it is activated by enterokinase. Okay, it is activated by enterokinase. Okay, clear? This was simple. Remember, make a note of all the contents of the constituents of the pancreatic juice. Okay, sorry, before I move to the next question, let's go back to our question 11. Yeah, so clearly you can see here chymotrypsinogen is present in the pancreatic juice, not chymotrypsin. Trypsin also no, and enterokinase, like I told you, is secreted in the intestinal gut. Okay, the duodenum. Intestinal mucosa, sorry. Clear? Next question. Okay, question number 12. Which one of the following correctly represents the normal adult human dental formula? Okay, this appeared in 2011. So it's clearly normal human, adult human. So it is clearly C. Okay, the answer is C. Let's go to the discussion. So the normal human adult formula, it has 2 incisors, 1 canine, 2 premolars and 3 molars. I think we already discussed this. 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3 into 2. Okay. So you add, let's add these numbers. 2, 1, 1, 3 into 5 and 3, 8. This is also 8 into 2. So 8 plus 8, 16. 16 into 2 is 32. 8 into 2, or you can do 8 into 2, 16. Plus 8 into 2, 16. So 32 teeth. Okay, so the human adult teeth, they have 32 teeth. Okay, so this is the dental formula. Okay, so this is there in NCERT. Please study this. This is important. Okay, clear? This was also direct. I don't think it should have been difficult to answer this question. Okay. All right, next question. 2 friends are eating together on a dining table. One of them suddenly starts coughing while swallowing some food. Okay, this coughing would have been due to improper movement of, okay, this appeared in 2011. So this coughing, what he was eating and then suddenly starts coughing. So it could be due to the improper movement of epiglottis. Okay, so your answer is A. Right, let's go to the discussion. So now an elastic cartilaginous flap, okay, which is called the epiglottis. It's an elastic cartilaginous flap, okay, and it's placed on top of the glottis, okay, and stops food from entering the trachea. So if you have the trachea here, there is a, let's say, cartilaginous flap here, okay, and this moves like this. Is the glottis. This is your trachea. Okay, it has C-shaped structures here. Yeah, this is the epiglottis. Okay, so this is what it looks like. It moves. It's like a flap. Okay, it will move. Now, every time you swallow, there's a certain function that's happening inside, and it is involuntary. Up to a certain point, it is voluntary when your food goes in the bolus of the food, your bolus, that is the food that you have chewed, moves into your pharynx, there are some receptors present in the lower part of the pharynx. Okay, there are some sensory receptors present in the lower part of the pharynx, and they send a signal to the swallowing center of your brain. Okay, they send a signal to the swallowing center of the brain. Okay, now what happens? Now that brain has received that signal, swallowing center has received the signal. Now whatever happens after that is beyond our control. Okay, now whatever happens after that is beyond our control, and all those movements will be involuntary. Now what happens is, when the food has gone into the latter part of the pharynx, the behind of the last part of the pharynx, okay, your larynx, okay, where the vocal cords are present, okay, they come together, okay, and with the help of muscles your larynx moves up. Okay, your larynx moves up. Okay, what happens is, it is done to close the internal nares so the food does not go back out. Okay, the food does not go back out. At the same time, the epiglottis also shuts the trachea. It also shuts the trachea, and the esophagus, the food is allowed to go into the esophagus. So the esophagus, say, is present here. Okay, esophagus. Okay, now I shouldn't have done this here. Esophagus is present on the behind part. Sorry, let me erase this. Yeah, let me erase this part too. Okay, so this is a trachea, and I want the esophagus is placed close over here. Okay, now just imagine if this epiglottis shuts down. Okay, the larynx has moved anteriorly up, just close the internal nares, and the epiglottis shuts. So what happens? It has allowed space. Say this is your food. It has allowed space for the food to move into the esophagus. Now all this is happening involuntarily. Every time you swallow, okay, your trachea actually shuts down. That means you stop breathing for a few seconds. But that's those 2 to 6 seconds. Maybe it will last for 2 to 6 seconds. Now those 2 to 6 seconds is a very short period of time in your whole respiratory cycle. Okay, it's okay if you swallowing that time. You're not always swallowing. You're not always eating food or drinking water, right? So the 2 to 6 seconds is okay or enough for the food, for your breathing to not impede, to not stop, or not to be affected in any way. And at the same time, it allows for food to enter into the esophagus. Okay, so the epiglottis shuts, and this allows for the food to enter into the esophagus. Okay, so that is how swallowing happens. Like I said, it is all involuntary. Your swallowing center in the brain is doing all these functions. Okay, after a certain point, you allow the food to go in, you can't pull it back out. Once it's entered the lower part of the pharynx and the sensors have been activated and they detect that there's food or there's water that needs to be swallowed in, whatever actions happen or movements happen after that is all involuntary. It's beyond your control. Okay, this is the normal physiology of swallowing. Clear? Okay, so yeah, so during swallowing, it prevents the food from entering the trachea, like I already explained. Oops, sorry. Let's go back to the question. So clearly, two friends are eating together. One person coughs up, and this was due to the improper movement of epiglottis. So you need to understand how swallowing happens. Okay, this is there in NCERT, I believe. So please read NCERT. And yeah, this physiology is enough. Okay, that's why they say that you should not talk while eating. Right? They remember your parents keep telling you don't talk and eat. You tend to choke. So that means the food has entered into your trachea. Your talking at the same time and then you're eating also at the same time, it doesn't work. So every time you eat food or drink water, don't talk. Okay, first finish, swallow your food down, your food has gone in, then it's fine to talk. Okay, so this is also one of the reasons why you experience choking. So when the food, or for example, it enters the trachea by mistake, and what happens, then coughing starts. It's a reflex mechanism, and then the food comes out from there. Okay, question number 14. Secretin and cholecystokinin are digestive hormones. Okay, we know that they are secreted in, and this appeared in 2005. They are secreted in pyloric stomach, duodenum, ileum, esophagus. So the correct answer is duodenum. Okay, and so your answer should be B. Let's look at the discussion. So cholecystokinin is secreted by the eye cells. Okay, secreted by the eye cells in the mucosa of duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Secretin was the first gastrointestinal hormone discovered. Okay, so this could be an important piece of information that can appear in MCQs. Okay, like which is the first hormone that was discovered. So it's secretin, which is the first gastrointestinal hormone discovered. Something like that. So secretin, please remember, was the first gastrointestinal hormone that was discovered and secreted by the S cells in the mucosa of the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Now, if you notice in our options, there was duodenum and there was ileum also. So this one thing that I need you to understand, that I cells, S cells, they are present all over your intestinal epithelium. All right, they are present all over. They're present in the duodenum, they're present in the jejunum, they're present in the ileum. Correct? But most of the digestion is happening in the duodenum. Okay, most of the breakdown of fats and all is happening in the duodenum. Correct? So we will use duodenum as an answer, but that does not mean that ileum and jejunum don't have I cells or S cells and they don't secrete cholesterol, but very less action is happening over there. There is most of the action is happening in the duodenum. Okay, so that is why we choose duodenum as the answer. But if you read medical textbooks in medical physiology, it is present in duodenum, present in jejunum, and present in ileum also. Okay, there are I cells present there, there are S cells present there. But for us, and for to look at the physiological point of view, most of the digestion is happening in the duodenum. Okay, so for us that would be the right answer. Okay, sorry. So to answer your question, yes, you see ileum also, but that does not mean there are no S cells or I cells present there. Okay, but for us, yeah, duodenum is the right answer. So answer is B. Okay, next question. Question number 15. Duodenum has characteristic Brunner's gland which secrete two hormones called. This appeared in 2004. Now, if you look at this question, it's a little vague the way they have framed the question, the sentence. Now, duodenum has characteristic Brunner's gland, we know that, but they don't secrete hormones. Duodenum, yes, secretes hormones. The Brunner's gland as such don't secrete hormones. All right. So this could be vague, but if you look at our options, clearly B is the right answer. So your answer, if you write down B, it won't be wrong, but it is not completely right also. Okay, because the question is a little, vague. That is why. So they have mentioned duodenum. It has characteristic Brunner's gland which secrete two hormones. Now, duodenum secretes two hormones. Yes, we know that, but Brunner's gland don't secrete two hormones. All right. So please be careful. If you come across a situation like that, then you can select B as your right answer. But that is the answer that makes more sense over here. Okay, let's go to the discussion. So the eye cells of duodenum, jejunum, and ileum secrete cholecystokinin. Okay, and the S cells of duodenum, jejunum, and ileum secrete secretin. Okay. So now Brunner's gland are characteristic of duodenum. We know that, yeah. And they secrete mucin, which protects the mucosa from acidic stomach contents. So mucin is alkaline in nature. Okay, mucin is alkaline in nature, and so it counteracts the acidic contents that are entering from the stomach into the duodenum. It protects the intestinal mucosa. Okay, so clear? All right, so yeah, so this is an interesting table. If you want, you can note it down. I have taken this from Guyton, and he's the author of a textbook of medical physiology. So like I told you, cholecystokinin, okay, the eye cells in the duodenum, jejunum and ileum, and secretin, we just spoke about it, right? S cells of the duodenum, jejunum and ileum. All right, okay, if you want, you can note it down. It's up to you. All right, let's move on to the next question. Okay, question number 16. Which part of the body secretes the hormone secretin? Secretin. And this appeared in 1999. So you have stomach, you have esophagus, you have ileum, you have duodenum. Again, the same question, the same discussion that we previously had, right? Answer is duodenum. Answer is D. But that does not mean ileum also does not have those cells, okay, the S cells that which secrete, but most of the action is happening in duodenum. Most of the digestion, the breakdown and all is happening in duodenum, okay. The pancreas, the pancreatic juice, intestinal juice, all that is secreted into the duodenum first, and all that digestion is happening there. Okay, so secreted by the S cells present in the duodenum, jejunum and ileum. But most of the digestion takes place in duodenum, hence it would be the right answer. Alright, clear? Simple, direct questions. I don't think there was any problem in answering today's questions in this lecture. And let's move on. Okay, so we've come to the end of today's video lecture, and I hope you've enjoyed today's video lecture, and I hope you've learned something new today. So please like, share and subscribe to MJ Need Biology, and I'm also available on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so you can follow me there for more updates, and I'll see you in the next video lecture, right? So bye.